Okay, welcome everyone to this evening's seminar, which is the seventh edition of the Frontiers Science Seminar Series 2021. Today's topic is on mental health, and we'll be discussing how this affects us as scientists, but like I put in the chat box, the topic of mental health is everybody's topic, regardless of whether you're a scientist or not. So I am very hopeful that every one of us who are participating today will benefit from today's topic. And we have a very capable speaker, Dr. Indigo, who is a consultant, internationally renowned, as you can see from the advert I sent out in Sussex and Mind Wellness. So proper introduction will be given to her when the time comes, but you can see her website at the bottom of the page that is showing. So please take note of that and explore who she is. I think you will benefit from some of the things she has done previously. I've had her in one of my programs, and it was quite inspiring. She has a number of books she has written, so you can take advantage and get them. So we are really privileged to have her today. But the moderator will give introduction when the time comes. As I will always say, the seminar series we have this year, we have themed it Disrupting Stagnation, Empowering Africa's Future. I have said in the chat box, we mean every word we have here. Our continent needs to go in the right direction. And this is a time for that to happen. If it doesn't happen now, then I think we are hopeless. And one of the ways that our continent can go in the right direction is for the scientists to come on board. For many decades, we have been sleeping, but we think that without science, it is difficult for any nation to go in the right direction, because developmental plans, developmental strategies must be evidence-based in order for them to work and work effectively. So the goal of these meetings is to inspire us, inspire you, inspire me, so that we'll go back and rethink, rejig, reevaluate what we do as custodians, and not just custodians, but also the elite, part of the elite, that we take the blame if Africa fails. But I know it wouldn't fail, because we are all ready to do what is needed to go in the right direction. So this is one of the topics we have in this 3-weekly seminar series we have planned for this year. And I believe that those who have been coming have been benefiting and getting inspired on how they can add value to what they currently do as scientists. So the Frontiers Initiatives, the full name is African Science Frontiers Initiatives. We shortly call it Frontiers Initiatives. And what we do is to bring up this conversation about Africa's future. We want to contribute to Africa development, and our goal is to explore how science can add to these developmental goals we have. So we have workshops like this, seminars, training, capacity building, career development trainings we have had. and we'll continue to have. We're not stopping. We are moving forward. And we are very, very grateful that we have an army of scientific soldiers who are really following us and pushing us ahead to move in this direction. And we hope that we'll continue to receive this support that we are getting. Okay. All right. So our vision is this: to raise the next generation of African scientists with right competencies to drive Africa's development and transformational agenda through innovative scientific research. And we have mission to instill excellence in African science through competence acquisition, capacity building, and career development. We want to contribute to African science that tackles Africa's challenges. We believe that only a competent science can change the current narrative Africa faces. We don't only train you in our programs, in the courses we have, in our workshops, but we use this platform as a connection platform. You can imagine the courses we have organized. It is so amazing that from these courses, Africans develop very strong knitted connections that they maintain in going forward. You meet people you have not met before, and then you connect from these courses. And some of them are already doing projects together. Some of them are doing several things together and moving forward. So you don't only get training to help in your everyday job, but also connections that are important to help us grow in the right direction. We also mentor scientists, and we have what we call the book smart skills. And we believe here that many things you need as a scientist, many things you need to do well, goes beyond the four walls of the classroom. You do your master's, you do your PhD, you require continuous training, continuous education. And many of these are based on the street smart phenomenon, whereby you get it from experiences of those who have walked through those trajectories of life. And that is what we offer here. We bring opportunities, we bring experiences, and train people based on these experiences and send them back to what they are doing. And this clearly shows that they benefit from this opportunities. So everything we do put on our YouTube channel, both the seminar series we have here and then the trainings. So if you go to our YouTube channel, Eman can help me to put those links there so that you can have them. The last training we had just finished on Friday, and it was on research funding and grant writing. For those, we accepted 100 participants. 550 applied. We accepted 100. Initially, we wanted to have 50 people, but since we got so much applications, we had to increase it by double. And unfortunately, several people didn't come. Some had technical issues with joining, some had other conflicting issues, but we trained 60 participants, and the experience, I tell you, many of those are already in this meeting today. You can share your experience, some of your experience on the chat box, but it was fantastic as far as I know, and we will be releasing the report of what the participants think about this course. But the feedback we get is that they didn't want it to end on Friday, but unfortunately it has to end because we planned only for 1 week. But anyway, we have package of trainings in the future. The next one is coming in July. This was the first one, the first training we ever had last year, July, on systematic reviews and meta-analysis. I'll be repeating it in July this year. The advert will be coming out in June next month. So please watch out for that. This course all the courses we offer are multidisciplinary. It doesn't only mean that those in certain disciplines can attend. So if you are coming from any discipline, you benefit from the trainings we offer. So look out for this and then register. And one thing, we have a rule that if you don't use the opportunity we give you, because there are many people on the waiting list, we will not grant you future opportunities. So please, if you receive opportunity, know that there are those who would be happy to use this opportunity. Don't miss it, because we are serious in changing the narrative of Africa from every angle. All right, for the seminar series we are having, we have very capable speakers, as you can see from the ones that have presented before now, and then the ones on the screen. Today we have Dr. Indigo, and then we have several other speakers, and we are very privileged to have the African Academy of Sciences playing very important role in this seminar. So we'll be having the executive director in one of the sessions in the future, and then we'll also be having the head of communications and the communication manager of the African Academy of Sciences. And that is just to tell you how much interest they have in what we are doing here. So please don't miss the opportunity we have here, trying to create value within the ecosystem of science in Africa. Yeah, I have said this. We have the recordings on our YouTube channels. We have our newsletters. These have been slow in coming, but we will try our best to put it forward for you as they come. And the goal is that from these presentations, we will have a compiled book we'll be releasing at the end of this year. Hopefully next year we'll get that ready. And also we have during the last session of every quarter, we have an additional program we call My Career, My Story. And here we invite some African brothers and sisters to tell us and inspire us with their unique career stories. We have had during the first quarter of this year, end of March, we had the first one, and the next session, 20th of June, we'll be having the second one. So please, if you have your story, your career story you think can inspire somebody, please be free to come to us. We will feature you. If you have a career story you think can inspire somebody, let us know, let me know, let Airman know, and then we will feature you. The meetings are 5 p.m. GMT, 5 p.m. GMT. So please note this. Sorry, I made a mistake today when I sent the reminder, and I corrected that when the meeting was starting. So it's good that you took note of that and you are here. So it's 5 p.m. GMT. We have separate registration for each seminar session, and so watch out when I send the advert. We will ensure that this continues to happen, and then you register. We will keep you posted. Everyone is muted at entering, and so to reduce background noise, because we are recording this, at least for the sake of those who are not able to join, and for keeping track, if you want to go back to watch again. So during the question and answer, I'll open opportunity where if you want to speak, you can mute yourself, but that will be when you are recognized. We have 2 hours. We'll try to respect the 2 hours. We do not want to go with the African time. We'll try to respect the 2 hours. While the speaker is speaking, if you have questions, please use the chat box. We are collecting them in the background, and then we'll be showing them at the end of the presentation, so that the speaker will answer those questions. And then we have evaluation for each session of the seminar series, which will help us to improve. So please ask your question on the chat box, and then Eman will put on the chat box as well the evaluation website, so that you can help us evaluate the session for today. The previous sessions on the YouTube, as you can see, so please take advantage to watch again if you are interested in watching through, and if you have not joined those, please go to the YouTube channel and see. Particularly the last quarter, we had two sisters from Ethiopia and from Ghana who shared their fantastic and inspiring career stories with us. Okay, I will introduce the moderator for today. He's Dr. Ronald Nwaro. He's a practicing psychologist at Illinois Department of Human Services in the US. Dr. Ron has his personal objective, and he says that he wants to make a contribution towards helping individuals and groups in need of academic, social, cognitive, and other psychological support to achieve their goals and aspirations in life. Dr. Ron has multi degrees from different places, home in Africa and abroad, particularly in the US, as you can see from what is there. And he's a multidisciplinary person. He's pure science, hard science, soft science, business, industry. I mean, he covers all. And I think it's a privilege to have somebody like him moderating today, especially also having a very good background in the topic of today. He has previously worked about 8 years as a juvenile justice specialist, also in the Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice in Chicago. He has other merits belonging to several professional organizations. So, Dr. Ron, we are happy to have you today. It's a privilege. One thing I will end with is that many people have come back to me after registering to ask, is this your brother? Well, I thought I will answer that question here today. So my answer is yes. My answer is also no, because I know when they ask the question, the motive was whether he's my family brother, he's my blood brother. In that, no, he's not my blood brother, but he's also my blood brother, because we are all brothers and sisters, isn't it? So he's my brother, not my blood brother, but he's also my brother. I hope it's not too confusing for you. So, but I call him my elder brother because that is who he is. So, Dr. Ron, I try to confuse the participant a bit about who you are to me. You are my elder brother, also not my elder brother. So I give the floor to you, and thank you very much for coming in here today to moderate this session. So please unmute yourself from your end, Dr. Ron, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brett Nwaro, my brother from the same community. I really appreciate your introduction. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, depending on where you are residing at the moment. Once again, I want to welcome you to this 7th edition of 2021 Frontiers Science webinar. In today's edition of the program, we shall explore the topic that says mental health and the scientist. When we talk about mental health, what comes to mind is the emotional well-being of an individual. We also think about the emotional and psychological well-being, social well-being of an individual. So mental health affects how a person thinks, feels, and acts. It does not end there. It goes beyond there as it determines how a person or individual handles stress, relates to others, and makes choices in life. Obviously, the issue of mental health is important at every stage of a person's life, beginning from childhood all through adulthood. On the other hand, is the concept of a scientist. Who is a scientist? We may perceive a scientist as someone who pursues or applies knowledge, an understanding of natural and social world through evidence-based methodology. Science incorporates experiment, observation, or what more, as standards for testing hypotheses. And so to dissect today's topic fully, we have our guest speaker, Dr. Indigo. Dr. Indigo is knowledgeable on the idea that mental health and science are not dramatically opposed to each other, but rather exist as a symbiotic relationship for sustainability. She's someone who blends successful practices of the West with wellness philosophies. As a successful entrepreneur, Dr. Indigo has led her company, Careers in Transition Incorporated, to become one of the top 500 fastest growing companies in America. She owns and operates, manages several successful businesses in Asia and America. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I implore you to join me in welcoming Dr. Indigo, our guest speaker, in today's edition of our Frontier Science Seminar. Dr. Indigo.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome you to this program. Thank you. The floor is yours.
So it's a pleasure to be here. We have about 90 minutes where I will present, and let me start my slides. I have to do a share, so let me see. So when I share, I cannot see everyone. I really can't see anyone. So please let me know if you cannot see this.
We are seeing it. We are seeing it, ma'am, please. We are seeing it.
Okay, great. Great. So, oh, excuse me, I brought my friend with me, this mosquito, he goes everywhere with me. So if you see me waving, it's because of a mosquito that's flying around. So what we're going to be talking about really is mental health and scientists developing resilience for the new normal. It would be remiss not to talk about what's going on over the last year and a half and how it's impacting us both personally and professionally. And so I'm going to talk about finding meaning in adversity. And as you can see on this picture, can everyone see my slide? Is my slide showing up?
Yes, we see the first slide.
Good. So the slide here is about finding meaning. As you can see, I'm wearing green. You're going to find a lot of my slides have green in it because green is the color of mental health. And they came up with that color pretty much because it is believed that nature is a very soothing environment and it creates well-being. So today, I'm going to be talking about many different things as we move through our time together. So I am a success and wellness practitioner. A lot of my time before receiving my PhD was spent around growth capacity and having a very successful business. You know, the first time I made it to the Inc. 500 list of top 500 fastest growing companies in America, I figured, okay, it's a fluke. But then I did it again. And the types of clients that I work with that may be of interest to you is like the International SOS. We know that's very science driven. NASA, very science driven. CDC, very science driven. Google, very science driven. So I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of my career working with organizations that's steeped in STEM. For instance, my first biggest client was the Environmental Protection Agency, and then I picked up CDC. And so the things I'm going to be talking to you about is coming from experience of me working with not just scientists, but engineers, African Americans, as well as what I would call they're foreigners for us because they would come to America to work on projects from different countries. And I'm going to share with you some of their challenges and things that they had to experience being a scientist in America. I know they're saying that you should put your question in and they'll answer it at the end, but my preference is that I want us to have dialogue. I don't want to be a talking head where I'm just talking into a screen about what I feel is important. I want you to ask questions. If you need to unmute yourself and raise your hands, hopefully someone can see that. Or write the question and someone will stop me. I don't mind being stopped to talk about what we're talking about, because I may talk about a certain subject that I understand completely, but then we go into another area, and if you don't understand what I talked about earlier, what I'm going to talk about later may not make sense. So please ask questions of me. I know how to stop and start and so forth. And so my 3 areas of expertise is mind wellness, transformational coaching, and growth capacity. So he read, Dr. Noor read some of the things that I'm known for, but let me share with you what I'm doing currently. So right now I'm sitting in Tanzania, and I came to Africa a week ago. And I would say I'm stepping into the flow. I'm listening to the spirit of what I should be doing. And I just feel so humbled to be in Africa after so many years of wanting to be here. So since the pandemic, I've been a founding member of the Malaysia Coalition of Mental Health that's sponsored by Rotary. I've been speaking all around the world around what we're getting ready to talk about. Sometimes I do it in a 20-minute presentation, sometimes in a 3-hour presentation. I would consider myself a healer. And what I mean by healer is that people will say to me, because everyone knows me as Dr. Indigo. So people will say to me, oh, what hospital do you work in? And I'll say, no, I'm not an MD, I'm a PhD. And they'll be like, oh. And I'll say, oh, no. What you don't understand is I heal the world. I don't heal bodies. I heal the world and the problems that we encounter as people. So I consider myself a healer. And so recently I've been on many different talk shows and radio shows and things like that. So there's not a lot that you can ask of me in this space that I don't think I'll be comfortable with. So please have your questions ready and let's have dialogue. I'm known for my book series. Let's see, Playing by the Unwritten Rules. 1, which is from moving from the middle to the top. Playing by the Unwritten Rules 2, from a job defense to a career offense. And then the last of that series that I wrote just recently, which is Here's What I Think, This Is What I Know. So some of the things I'm going to pull and talk about tonight, or for some of you today, comes from that book series. So here, I love this picture. It says, everyone grab an oar. And where this came from is many years ago, I used to work for a hospital called Grady Health System. It was a 3-tier or 3-tertiary hospital in Atlanta. Basically, the joke was, if you have a code and you go to Grady, you're gonna die. But if you were in a helicopter accident, you want them to take you to Grady because they will save your life. So when I was working at Grady as a career mobility officer, they were laying off a lot of people, mostly administrative people, but we also had a lot of people whose jobs became obsolete as technology came. So some people sat on on the sideline as if it didn't bother them. Like, it's not my problem because I have a job that is safe. And so my boss would always say, the boat is sinking, everyone grab an oar. And so I love that saying because we're all in this boat together, whether you're a scientist in, a physicist, or if you're in nanotechnology, it doesn't matter. We're all in this together. And so organizations are facing a perfect storm. The perfect storm is everything from the pandemic, global shutdown, financial crisis, in America, inequalities. And as professionals, we need to address mental health and resilience. That is the oar that we all need to grab. We all need to understand that as professionals, we're sinking, we're taking on water. And so we need to grab an oar. And because of what we're gone through, nothing will be the same. And how you, being in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, deal with this personally and professionally will lay a foundation for your future successes. If you don't do well now and you struggle, it's going to be very hard for you to catch up later. So I hope the things I'm going to talk about tonight will give you pause and give you an opportunity to step back and look at your own situation and how you're dealing with things. So we're going to discuss the importance of extinguishing fires caused by these storms, such as mental distress, low morale, a new workplace. Some of you are working from home now. How poor performance is going to set in for some of your peers, and career management and so forth. So I'm going to look at a lot of different things as we go through this. But the first thing I want to talk about is embracing change. What's interesting is that I find that most people who are in science think that they embrace change because they're working on things that will create change. But when you really think about it, they aren't embracing change, meaning they know that if you do A, B, you'll get to C. If you add 1 + 1, you'll always get 2. So they see things in a very linear way or in a very methodical way because of how it has to be proven. Whereas today, where we're going means we have to embrace change, meaning you may not have the evidence, but you may have to trust your gut instinct. And that is not even heard of in science sometimes. Would you agree? That when we start talking about intuition, gut instinct, and things like that, which is not proven, people become hesitant because it's not validated. And where we're going, and what I'm talking about when we're talking about mental health, is very much coming from here and from here. We're talking about a mind, body, spirit connection. And that when you are not in alignment, that's when you start feeling disconnected. And there's no books, there's no theorems, there's no algorithms that can put you back in alignment when you don't have a mind, body, spirit connection. Because change derives in the mind, not in books, not in theories, not in hypothesis. And that's why people have a hard time with it. Any thoughts before I go any further? So when we're talking about there is change, what you need to understand is that 70% of change efforts, change initiatives in organizations actually fail. So change efforts fail because people are unwilling to look or pull back the curtains and see what's behind there, causing things to happen that we're not able to put our finger on, we're not able to prove. And so that causes a lot of disruption and discomfort for people. The other thing that causes change efforts to fail is a lack of skilled employees. And when you have a lack of skilled employees, then you have stress. When you have stress, then that's when mistakes happen. And what's happening is that because of the change that has happened across the globe, meaning some people have to work from home, that's change. Some people don't know how to work from home. They need to be around other people. Some people don't know how to work in a system where things are not the way they used to be. For instance, I just left Malaysia a month ago, and that was very disruptive for me because I had my studio, I had everything I needed. And so I'm in a village right now, and that village doesn't have great internet. And so I had to come to the Hyatt early just to set up and to make sure things work. Now, some people would be stressed out by that. Now, to be honest with you, I wasn't comfortable with it, but I'm accustomed to change. So I want you to just stop and think about, how comfortable are you with change? And is this change causing distress, duress, uneasiness, discomfort, and things like that? So as we start talking about some of this stuff, I want you to really understand that you, as a scientist, as a professional, whether you're a leader or a manager or both, you must drive out fear. You must understand mental distress and what it looks like, not just for yourself, but those who work on teams with you, those who work around you. You also need to provide a platform of transparency, meaning people need to be able to talk about this. Very often, I hear people talk about mental health as if it's a negative thing, and I'll address that a little bit more. And also, when you're working from home, or we're now doing more Zoom stuff, you need to increase communication in meetings. I'm finding that people are working in the same mode as before the pandemic, but yet things have changed and we're not getting the same results. As Einstein said, to do the same thing over and over and expect different results is insanity. So if you are now working from home and you used to be in an area, but yet you're not increasing your meetings, you're not talking to people the way you used to, then you're not going to have the same amount of success or results that you need. So we have to drive out fear. And these are the ways we can drive out fear. And when we talk about change, and change is just a small portion, I don't have a lot of time to be with you all, so I'm just taking snippets of other areas and condensing this so that I can give you some things that I think are relevant. So how will your light shine through all of this darkness that we're going through? And we are in a storm. In a storm, there is darkness. But what's interesting, I like to use this picture. At one time, there was a candlestick maker, and the candlestick maker thought that he was the best thing ever. That now that there's candles, we can read at night, we can walk the streets at night, it's safer, and everyone felt like nothing could be better than a candle. Then the light bulb came, and now we see that we still have candles, but it's not used for the same reason. You don't need a candle to read unless the power goes out. We find scented candles. We find candles for many different things, but now we have a light bulb. And I'm sure the person who came up with this light bulb said, hey, I'm the best thing there is. There's no need for anything else. But then we have this light bulb, and now we've gone to this light bulb. So the essence here, I want you all to understand, is that change is inevitable. And if you can embrace change, and the change that we're going through is going to minimize the mental distress that you will experience over the next few years. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's Buckminster Fuller, who was a futurist. So I would submit to you that whatever you are doing as a scientist, you must change so that you can come up with new ways of doing things, better ways of doing things, faster, more improved. And that's what this is all about. So let's talk about mental health in its purity, in its purest form. So according to the World Health Organization, mental health was actually scheduled to be the next pandemic, but Corona jumped in front of it. Back in 2018, 2017, if you look it up, they were saying that mental health is going to be a pandemic. But we got coronavirus, and that just, overshadowed everything. But there is no vaccine for mental illness. And right now, what is it called? I want to say the Times. I think it's Times. A magazine said that mental health is the new pandemic within the corona. USA Today, there it is. USA Today actually said the mental health or mental illness will be the epidemic within the coronavirus pandemic. So we are there. And if you look at this picture right here, you have the red, which is illness, the yellow or gold, which is neutral, and then the green, which is healthy. So let me ask you this. When was your last checkup, your last mental health checkup? People will say that they've gotten a dental checkup. They'll get their teeth checked and cleaned. They'll take their car and get a car checkup. They'll do all these, they'll even do their computer. They'll run it through virus scans and all that kind of stuff. But when was the last time you did a mental health checkup? We often don't do mental health checkups. We don't talk to anybody about what's going on. So it's very important that we talk about mental health. So, are there any questions before I move on? Was there anything there that I didn't see? Okay, so let's talk about the mental health continuum. What I believe is that mental health runs the gamut. Mental health is like physical health. There is no, I don't have mental health. That's like saying I don't have arms. Yes, you have mental health, just like you have physical health. But what we have is a continuum of 1 being illness, 10 being wellness, 1 being red, disease, such as schizophrenia, when you are in an episode for bipolar disease, bipolar disorder, all these different things where you need medication is illness. Now, you can have a diagnosis. That does not mean illness, especially if you do not need medication. So you can have a diagnosis of, say, anxiety, depression, things like that. But you may have moments of clarity where you're fine. You may have months, years of being fine. But it's illness is when you need to have medication to deal with it. Now, wellness is when you are in complete nirvana. That's where you feel well, you think well, you're clear, you're healthy, you're physically aligned. Because remember, I said it's a mind, body, spirit connection. So when you are well, that's when you have fitness mentally. That's where you're thinking positively. Now, neutral is interesting. Neutral is neither well or ill. It just is. That's where you find people who are, kind of lethargic. They just don't care. Nothing really excites them. They may be going through something. As we see the storm in this woman's mind, we see just, the light coming in, it's just stability, I guess. But here we can kind of see, more of looking up, optimism. So let me share with you how this works, because this is where I think people have a misunderstanding of mental health. So right now, I am well. I'm very well. Now, do I have a diagnosis? I have a mental health diagnosis. And because of that diagnosis, I can run the spectrum. But today, and for the last few months, I was very well. I am very well. But let's just say I get a phone call from the United States that says my mother and my brother were in an accident and they were rushed to the hospital. Now, I'm well, but I'm going to start moving to like 6, like what's going on? What happened? Give me more information. Now I get a call again and they said, we don't know. They're being seen by the doctor. I may slide to about 5 or 4, right? Now, time is passing and they come out and they have no word for me. I may slide to around 3. I may actually slide to 2 where I may need, a sedative to calm my nerves. I'm going into an ill state where I'm not thinking clearly. I'm upset. I'm anxious. I'm nervous. I'm thinking all the worst of what can happen. So I'm around, 2, maybe 3. But then they come back a couple of hours later, maybe a day, and they say they're fine. We're going to keep them just for observation. So I may go to a 6. I may go to a 7. So what I want you to understand is that this mental health continuum, we run that spectrum daily, and you have no control over circumstances that can happen to you, but you do have control over how you may respond to them. So I want you to understand this, because many people think that if you have a diagnosis, you're ill. If you become depressed, you're ill. And that is not the case. You can have anxiety disorder. Like I said, you can be depressed. Like for instance, a lot of people don't even understand the difference between depression and sadness. Depression is when you cannot attribute where sadness is coming from. And it can be with you anywhere from an hour to a year. I have a friend who was depressed for a year. She was actually ill and had to actually get electric shock therapy. But you can have someone who is sad, and if they're sad, they may only, they may be around 7. Sadness is when you can attribute. You may lose a job. Now you're sad. You may break up with someone. You may go through a divorce. You're sad. That does not mean you're going to slip to illness. But if it stays and you can't understand why you're feeling these things, then that may be depression. And that's when you need to start talking to someone that can help you with mental health. We go to a dentist when we have a toothache. We'll go to a doctor, a gynecologist when we have cramps, ladies. Men, you'll go and get your prostate checked. But when we start having mental health dis-ease, not disease, but dis-ease, you all don't talk to anybody. Very often, you don't even talk to, let alone you don't talk to your mother, your friends, or anyone, let alone an actual mental health care provider. And that is so essential and is so important. But this is why people don't. Mental health is not what we call a casserole disease. Now, what is a casserole disease? If someone has breast cancer and gone in for chemo or had to go into the hospital for a heart attack, or say they had cancer or anything, when they get out, people bring food to their house because they can't cook and they know they're going to be trying to rest and convalesce. But when you have a mental breakdown, or when you're not feeling your best and you're depressed, you don't get anything. No one gives you anything. It's not a casserole disease. As a matter of fact, people say things like, don't go over there, she's kind of loopy. So because of that, we have not created a healthy respect for mental health. For instance, I have categorized them into 3 areas. One is misleading statistics. There are facts. There's FACT, facts about mental health, and there is fake statistics about mental health. When I think about statistics, I remember being in statistics class, and my professor at the time said, statistics is very much like a bikini. And you're like, what do you mean by that? He said, a bikini can hide what it wants to, but it reveals everything it wants to reveal. Statistics is the same. It can hide some of the more important things that we want it to hide, while it can reveal what we want it to show. So I'll give you a misleading statistics. In Malaysia, they reported that people with mental health disorders are usually from the lower income and less educated group. Well, that is not true. I also hear people say, like I'm in a group with the people doing a mental health program, and they put on their website that women are more prone to have mental health issues than men. That is not true as well. Men have different mental health issues than women, but they don't have less. So people don't understand the real statistics and the real research behind it. So people make up stuff as they go along. So as we start dealing with it, we have to understand, especially as scientists, when you send out misleading information because you looked up something that was not validated, but said people with a mental health disorder are usually of the lower income as well as less educated, who wants to be in that group? Well, I'm here to tell you, I was on the Inc. 500 list because I had a contract, one contract as a small minority woman business that was worth $18 million. I was certainly not of the low income bracket. I was also working on my PhD when I discovered I had a mental health diagnosis. So I was not low or lower educated. So we have to be careful of the statistics that we buy into. The next thing is stigma. When we look at stigma, we're looking at labeling, how we label people. And let me just put it like this. Africa is notorious and horrible in how they treat mental health, to the point where since I've been here, and people don't know about my own diagnosis, I don't advertise it, but if you ask me about it, I talk about it. But they say things, and I'm always amazed at what they say, which is very ignorant and very insensitive. Well, since I said that word, let me drop to it. You know, here in America, we have a saying called, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." That's not true. Words can be very cutting. You've heard of the phrase sarcasm. Sarcasm actually comes from the Latin word of cutting, of peeling. Yeah. So when we hear people say things like, "Oh, people who have a mental health problem are crazy, they're loopy, they're not to be trusted," and all that kind of stuff, it's insensitive, and it calls people not to come forward to talk about their mental health. So we as professionals have to create a space for people to feel comfortable talking about what's going on with them. So we have the labeling going on. We also have power. You know, the people who have power can use mental health as a way to keep people who have depression or sadness at a level of disempowered. Exclusion, people who, you know, will say, you know, I don't really talk to people who are this or that. Stereotyping and all the discrimination, culture, all that plays in. And what's interesting is the very thing that affects us as, for me, African American, and for those of you as American, I mean, as Africans, they use that for you as Africans while you use it for people with mental health challenges. So we have to collectively come together and stop the stigma. We have to come together and talk about it and be okay to talk about how we feel in our emotions. Because here's what you need to understand. And for those of you who understand energy, which was something Einstein really was all about. And when Einstein talks about energy in motion, and that energy, whether positive or negative, is in motion, which means it is emotion. So if you have a negative emotion, you will do negative things. If you have positive emotion, you will do positive things. So we have to help one another when we recognize that someone on our team is not where they need to be emotionally, because mental health is about our emotions. It's about our thoughts, our behaviors. So if our emotions are such, our behavior and our actions will show up to manifest what we have in our head. So now let me move to, unless there's any questions. So I'll just pause for a second.
I think, Dr. Indigo, you can continue. I'm collecting the questions and we can bring them forward at the end of the presentation.
Okay. The only thing is when we bring them forward at the end, then I have to go back to old slides and try to rehash it. So me as a professional speaker, it serves better to talk about things as they come along versus most people aren't professional speakers. They have to stay on script.
Okay, I can ask one question that has come in here. Somebody is saying, I've never heard about mental health tests before. And so please, can you let me know where I can go for my own mental health test?
Okay, so there is no, no, it doesn't go back. Let's see. Okay, so there is no actual, okay, so as a psychologist, Dr. Noir can talk about how there are different tests to measure different things, okay? You have to go to a psychologist. And what's interesting, I wish I had time to really spend with you on this. There is psychiatrists, there's psychologists, there's counselors, therapists, coach. There's different people who do different things. So if you notice that you are not feeling your best, you might want to talk to a counselor. If you've noticed that this is something that's affecting your family, you may want to go to a therapist, which is more of a relationship in long term. If you notice that it's affecting you physically, you may be referred to a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is able to give you medication. So let's say you might need something for your nerves. You might need something for the anxiety and things like that. A psychiatrist can do that. A psychologist, and I'll let Dr. Noir talk a little bit more about being a psychologist. When I talk to psychologists, they're able to do various assessments. And sometimes it's tough to find a psychologist. You might want to go through your employee assistance program, EAP, to find them. Now, people will ask me, where do I fit into that scheme? I'm none of those. I am a coach. I am someone that have a doctorate that specialized and emphasized around mental health. So I understand a lot of what they talk about, but I approach it from a different perspective. I'm someone that will bridge you over to them. So if I were to have a conversation with you, and I can pick up on, I can't diagnose you, but I can pick up on certain things based on my own research, and based on a book, and based on my dissertation. I can recognize different symptoms. And I would say, you know what, I think you need to talk to a psychiatrist, or I think you need to talk to a psychologist who can do a battery of tests on certain things. Dr. Noir, are you available just to give a smattering of what a psychologist does? Because a lot of people don't even know about psychologists.
Dr. Ron, are you still there?
Okay, maybe he jumped off for a second.
Wait, I think I need to unmute him. Just a second, he's still there. Now you can unmute yourself and speak, please.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna speak briefly because I'm multitasking at this time. So psychologists do mental health assessment. We have, just as Dr. Indigo said, we have different tools we use. We have tools we use in the educational sector to measure, to evaluate performance, academic performance. We have things we use to measure intelligence quotient. We also have assessments we use to measure or determine or assess other behavioral issues. We have, when I was working at the prison with the Department of Juvenile Justice, we have what we call MESI, MESI is a tool that is used to assess prisoners when they are coming into the facility. We kind of try to use it to determine their mental state health, what they feel, how they feel, what they think about themselves, what their present conditions are, whether they are feeling like committing suicide, they are suicidal, whether they have any thought problem, things like that. So we have different tools for different mental health issues. And this is what psychologists do. Upon using these tools to get data, we analyze the data, and then from there we make informed decision about the state of the individual. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is what psychologists do. We use the tools to collect data about someone's behavior, and then from there, we complete our assessment and make a decision. And more oftentimes, we work with the psychiatrist, as Dr. Indigo said earlier. There is what we call, where I work now, we have what we call psych consultation meeting or review meeting. And there, the psychiatrist will work in conjunction with the psychologist. The psychologist will be the one to review each individual's behavioral data. And then the psychiatrist will, based on the review of the data, to make recommendation about medication, psychotropic medication, either initiation, decrease, or increase, as the case may be. But then the psychologist would have to analyze the behavioral data for that to be done. So the psychologist and the psychiatrist work in tandem. They work together to ensuring for the well-being, psychological well-being of an individual, or mental health well-being. So yeah, thank you.
Because of time, I'm not able to really go in deep about, the difference between a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist, a counselor, someone like myself. But the first stop, I think that if you don't see, I work with people through, they want to do transformation. And so I'm not like that pure want to talk about your mental health. I will help you, but I'm a short-term remedy. I'm the person to help you through your storm. So if you're not really sure, the best stop, in my opinion, is a counselor. And if a counselor realized that you need to see a psychiatrist, then they would refer you. And then the psychiatrist, like you said, will work with a psychologist. And then if you realize that you might need something more in depth, you might even have a therapist. So they're all a little different depending on what's going on. But the bottom line is that your mind, like your body, you don't go to a cardiologist if you have ingrown toenail. You go to different people. So you need to understand that about your mind. And the brain is so complicated, and it really bothers me that now everyone thinks that they can talk about mental wellness as if, it's the new fad, and it's not. It's an actual science. So thank you for that question. And if I didn't answer it completely, we can, try to look at it again at the end.
Yeah, there's another one here, Dr. Indigo. It says that those people with long toes are generally aggressive and get depressed so easily. How can this be handled under mental health?
So you said those people who are what?
With long toes.
Okay, so I'm not going to address that because that is not true. I'm sorry, that's not true. I'm sorry. I wish I could address it, but that's like saying someone with one arm is not smart. That is not scientific. If there's another question like that similar at the end, I would try to address it, but all my research, and I've done lots of research, I have never ran across people with long toes being aggressive. Now, maybe people that you've met with long toes have not been your cup of tea, but that is not scientific. Okay, so why resiliency? Personally, and if I seem like I was annoyed, this is what I mean by stigmas. When people say things like that, someone may be on this platform that has a long toe, and they're not aggressive. They're not even assertive. They're very easygoing. And then people make assumptions about them. So if I seem like I didn't address that in the most way that you would probably find you would like me to address it, it's because I actually took offense to that question because it's not scientific. So let's talk about life storms, you guys. Why resiliency, personally and professionally? I want to move you guys into looking at resiliency because I already talked about how change is necessary, right? And that you all of us are in a storm right now. Some of our storms are mild. Some of us have just like little, shower storms, while some of us are in some really deep, deep storms. Someone here may be going through divorce. Someone here may be abused. Someone may be losing a parent. Someone may have lost somebody to COVID, to HIV, things like that. So we all have different storms. Now, what's interesting is that a particularly violent storm arising from a rare combination is what we call the perfect storm. It's real. That's where several storms come in. And I submit that many of you probably have gone through a perfect storm recently. If we're talking about COVID and the global shutdown, some people have maybe lost funding for their projects and programs. So a perfect storm is especially a bad situation caused by a combination of unfavorable circumstances. So some of you, including myself, may be in a perfect storm or experienced a perfect storm. Now, here's what I want you to understand about weathering life storms. There's 3 times a storm appears in our life. We're either going into a storm, in a storm, or coming out of a storm. You know what I'm saying? So right now, everything may be perfect for you. That means you either came out of a storm, but it also may mean you may be going into a storm. And that's just life. Life cannot be perfect 100% of the time. If I shared with you some things that happened in my life, you would say, oh my God, like 2 years ago, no. 2017, I almost died twice in Malaysia from deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, and then something else after that. And that was a storm. Around the same time, I had relocated from America. So that was a storm, trying to get acclimated to an entirely different culture. I didn't speak the language. I was building a new company. So there are different storms. And here's the thing, no one can tell you that your storm is insignificant. We all deal with storms differently. And you need to learn to embrace whatever storm you're going through so that you can move through it with the least resistance. So some of you recognize this picture, but all of you probably recognize the man, Muhammad Ali. And he said here, it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, but it matters how many times you get back up. That's resilience. And a lot of us don't recognize this picture because very rarely did Muhammad Ali get knocked down. We see him as the great hero that won many of the fights that he had. So resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as a family, relationships, your workplace. Working, let's say today, which is Sunday. So say on Monday, you get a new grant to work on a project that you love and you're excited about. Then Friday they pull it. That used to happen to me all the time. I could be working on a project with NASA And because something changes in a department or a part of the organization gets shut down, they'll take that contract from me and I have to keep moving. So it's about bouncing back from difficult experiences. And over the next few years, I submit to you all, everything is going to be about resilience for you. You know, I remember going through Dartmouth, and the professor put on the board RQ, and we were all like, what is RQ? Nobody knew what RQ was, and we were all business owners who reached a certain level that could be a part of this Dartmouth program. And we didn't understand it. And what we came to realize is that it was resilience potent. You know, you have intelligence, IQ, then we moved into EQ, emotional intelligence or quotient, and now we're at a point where it's about RQ. So resilience is so broad. This definition is useful, but it doesn't reflect the complexity of resilience. There's so many different factors of resilience, such as biological, psychological. Like biologically, because we're all so different, biologically, you can become depressed because of hormones, right? Psychologically, you can become irritable because of your wiring, how you've been wired. Socially, you can be, let's just say women, for instance. You know, women still don't make the same as men. A male scientist can make $1 while the woman may make 70 cents on his dollar. So socially, there are some disparities which can cause us to not be as resilient. So there's so many different things that play into how we deal with our mental health and our resilience. So the first thing I want to share with you when we talk about this resiliency and things like this that I've been told has been very helpful for people is I came up with this acronym called CARS, which is in my second book. CARS is colleagues, advocates, resources, and supporters. And if you look here, you have a race car. And when you see race cars going around the track, when they stop at what's called a pit stop, you have 4 people who come and take care of the tires individually. They don't wait for one tire to go bad and then they remove that. They remove them all at one time and fix it to make sure that that car can go around the racetrack. So what I've come up with is that we all need what's called CARS: colleagues, advocates, resources, and supporters. If you want to make sure your mental well-being is really on track, you need to make sure you tap into colleagues. That's people who work with you. Those are people who know what's going on in the organization. They can tell ahead of time where the projects are moving. They can tell ahead of time where money is going to be funded. Some people don't connect with their colleagues enough that they're blindsided when something goes on, when a project is closed or cut, or when something doesn't work well. They don't have the relationships with their colleagues. And then you need advocates. Advocates are people who support you in a different way than a supporter. Advocates look out for you. They open doors for you. They advocate for you. Say, for instance, your budget is slashed, but in another department, you have someone who sees what you're doing and they can advocate to make sure you get on a different project. That's advocating. And the thing about an advocator, you don't choose people to advocate for you. Advocators choose you. So you must make sure that you are visible to them. And there may be another session that I'll do for you that I'll be talking more about having your CARS. But right now, I just want to give you a little snapshot about it. Then resources. Resources are people who can get you what you want. I used to be in the United States Marine Corps, and I was just an enlisted. I had no power whatsoever. But when I was stationed in Japan, that was during a time in the 80s, early 80s, when there was no such thing as electronic banking, online banking, none of that stuff. So checks had to actually be shipped unshipped over to Japan. So there was an incident where checks didn't come. So everybody was furious and upset and distressed about it. And so people started, coming into what they call bursar, went into the bursar's office to say, where's my check? How are we going to get paid and things like that? And they would just say, sorry, we don't have the money. Well, here I am, this very small little lance corporal who built relationships over time with resources. I always knew who to have as in a relationship to build my team of cars. And one was people who managed the money. So when the check didn't come, I went, and I remember seeing officers cursing and being angry. And they would just tell the officers, we can't do anything for you. But for me, I went in and I said, look, I really need to get paid. I have bills and things like that. And they would say, triplet, take this form. They would slide over a little form to me, fill this out, come back to me. Don't go over to anyone else. Come back to me and I'll make sure you get paid. That's a resource. You have to start figuring out who in your organization can be a resource so that when things happen, you have the right people to go to make things happen. Now, supporter is the last one. A supporter is a person who loves you despite yourself. They look out for you. Supporters usually aren't people in your work. Those are people who are usually in your family, your husband, your wife, your friends, people who care about you, who you can cry on their shoulders. See, some of us make the mistake of crying on our colleagues' shoulders or our advocates' shoulders. They're not there for that, because the person who may be advocating for you today may actually be your competition down the road. So you don't lean on them to support you. You lean on people who, you can tell personal things to. A supporter may be a counselor, a therapist, and so forth. Those are supporters. So make sure you have those people who will cover you, who will take care of you, who will help you drive through life's storms. So now this is what I want to share with you before we close out. There's 4 things I think can help you become more resilient and things that can help you on your journey. I will always say that seek out professionals who can help you with what I call your well-being checkup. But here are 4 things you can do on your own. One is journaling. And I think I bought, let's see. Yes. Okay. So I have a journal that I actually created. And my clients buy these. I do classes around it. Unfortunately, you can't buy these online at this point because it's very unique in terms of how I did a page saver. But I wanted to share this with you because you can do or get a journal anywhere. And what's interesting is, as scientists, you know how you have to document when you test something and you want to see what happens, and then you try it again and you document all the things. Well, you need that in your life. If a ship captain goes out to sea, he has a journal of the weather, of his cargo, everything, right? Well, we're all on a journey. You should be journaling as well. And what's interesting about the journal that I created, and you can do this, you can just get a booklet and create your own journal. I have in here, I hope it shows up, the date, the day, how you're feeling, and the time. If you start journaling and keeping track of how you're feeling, you will be able to see consistencies. You'll be able to see things that keep happening in your life that you need to address. I'll give you an example. When I was married, my son, the oldest one, would come home and I would be so happy to see him. And I started journaling. I noticed I would say, oh, Russell came home. It was great to see him. Oh, by the way, I'm sleeping in the guest room. My husband, named Dave, makes me sick, right? So I started noticing whenever my son came home, I usually ended up sleeping in the guest room. What I started to realize through my journal, this is years ago, but through my journal was that when he would come home, he would pit us against each other. That's that separate and, you know, what is it called? Divide and conquer. Because he would get money from me and his dad wouldn't want him to get money because he felt like, you know, he's a grown man, he has to work and all that kind of stuff. So if I had not noticed that in my journal, I would not have been able to stop it. I wouldn't have been able to create change because I'm not noticing things. So I submit that all of you, if you start journaling your experiences, when you start journaling things that bother you at work, things that make you happy at work, you'll start noticing a pattern. Like you may notice that every Friday, a certain person comes to your desk and asks something of you, and you feel pressure and stressed over the weekend. Well, if you start noticing that and start documenting that in your journal, guess what? You'll start preparing for that conversation that they're going to have, and you'll do something different about it. The second one is to meditate, visualize, have gratitude, positive psychology, and things like that. So for me, I find that when you are able to harness your thoughts, you can become well, you can do better. I have been successful in even bringing people down on their medications because I teach them how to breathe. Very often people don't breathe. I'll give you an example right now. I want everyone to freeze. Stop doing what you're doing, just freeze. Now, relax. How many of you notice that you were tense? Put in the chat if you were tense, if you were sitting rigid. A lot of us go through our entire day with our muscles tight, as if we're in a fight or flight position. And we don't need to be in that fight or flight all day, all the time. You have to learn to relax your body, relax your mind. And so I learned to do that by visualizing, and I learned to do that by breathing. If we can do something, let me see. See, I can't see many of you, so it's hard to do exercises with you. But I do these breathing exercises. And darn, it's really tough when I don't see people. When we do exercises for breathing, many of us haven't learned to breathe. And I'm going to ask, let me see, I see Dr. Yiki. Hi, Dr. Yiki, how are you? Let me ask you, Dr. Yiki, when you get in an argument with someone and you get upset, do you ever find yourself feeling lightheaded? Like you get so mad. Do you ever feel like you get a little lightheaded? A little, maybe, yeah? Dr. Noir, do you ever find that when you get really upset, you might, you know, kind of like almost black out, like you just, ooh. Okay, let me tell you guys what's happening. You're not breathing. When we get upset, pay attention to this. We stop breathing. We actually breathe very shallow. Like take a deep breath in right now, everybody. And exhale. Take another deep breath. And exhale. Awaku, Epifami, awaku. Can you feel the difference between the breath you just took and the breath you've been doing since you've been with me? Oh, I call on people when you have your thing on. We can wait. Anybody see a difference when they breathe in deeply from how they've been breathing since being on this platform with me?
Hello, Dr. Indigo. I did not have my mic on, so I could feel a difference anyway. Yeah.
Okay. And that's how we go through the day. We really do. We shallow breathe through the day. Like, okay, remember when we were children, is it Epiphan?
Epiphan, yeah.
Do you have like nieces or nephews, or have you seen babies when they're sleeping, how they breathe?
Yeah.
What does a baby look like when it's sleeping, it's breathing?
I don't know how to describe that, but what's, I don't know.
His or her stomach goes up. You ever
Oh
notice
yeah.
that?
Oh
Their
yeah,
stomach
yeah,
goes
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah.
That's the way we're supposed to breathe. But we don't breathe like that when we become adults. They breathe from their whole area down here. We breathe from here. We breathe
Oh.
from our chest. So if you get upset, you cut off breathing. And that's why you start having lightheadedness. That's why you get headaches. That's why you don't think clearly. So the secret is learn to breathe. So what I want to do, for those of you who can see me and I can see you, you want to do a breathing exercise really fast? I want to show you a way to help increase your mental well-being through deep breathing. Are you ready? Ready? Okay. So I'm going to do what's called box breathing. Okay. What that is, I want you, Ifani, Dr. Yiki, Chanidu. That's all I see for now. If I can see some other people, let me see. I'll call you out. Let me see who else is there. Okay, that's all that I can see. So what I want you to do, I want you to write down 3 things that you want to let go. 3 things that bothers you or makes you upset. Like for me, it can be seeing people litter. Ooh, on my way here, I was seeing people throw trash. Can't stand it. So 3 things that bothers you, or 3 emotions that you feel or have felt in the last week that are negative. Maybe anger, maybe sadness. It could be you lost someone. Whatever, 3 things, just write it down. You won't be telling me, I won't ask you to share. It's your personal thing. Just 3 things. Just like 3 words, like angry, sad, irritated, whatever. It could be 3 people's name. It could be 3 people that bothers you. Whatever you want. Now, I want you to write down 3 things that bring you joy. It could be your mother's face. You could put your mother's name. It could be like, for me, my brother is my hero. So I may put down Kevin, because when I think of him, it brings me joy. I have sons that live in Mexico. Visualizing them brings me joy. So what are 3 things that bring you joy? Write them down. And Theo Pista, thank you so much for that compliment. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Okay, now everyone has written down what the negative thing that they got going on, and they got the positive thing, right? Okay, now what I want you to do, you can either, I want you to relax, sit back, relax, put your hand in your lap or wherever you want it, whatever is comfortable for you, uncross your legs. And this is something I want to show you that you can do at your desk. You can do it anywhere when you're feeling stressed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to count to 3. And when I count, I want you to breathe in like this. I want you to breathe in, and I want you to then hold that breath for 3 seconds. And I want you to think about those 3 powerful things that you have, right? So while you're breathing in, thinking the powerful, positive things. While you're holding it, thinking the powerful things. And then I'm going to have you exhale, push it out. That's when you push out the 3 negative things. Like if I said pollution, judgment, anger, I'm breathing I'm thinking about pushing those out. And then when I think the positive is my brother, my sons, Africa, those are the positive things I'm breathing in and holding on to. Okay? So here again, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. You're going to be breathing in. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. You're holding that breath. 1, 2, 3. You're pushing it out. Then 1, 2, 3. You're holding it. 1, 2, 3. You're bringing it back in. So are we ready? Thumbs up. You ready? Okay. So breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Hold it. Think positive. 1, 2, 3. Push it out. 1, 2, 3. Hold. It's negative. Push it out. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in positive. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3. Push out the negative. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3. One more time. Bring in the positive. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3. Push it out. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3. Now take a deep breath and breathe naturally. Now, this is called box breathing. If you do this consistently, you'll be able to get up to, believe it or not, you can get up to like 60 seconds. There are people who can breathe in for so long and hold their breath. I can only do like 15. That's my max. And even then I'm like, oh, I gotta breathe. But learn to breathe. Remind yourself to breathe. Very often I could be sitting watching TV or just someplace, and I have to remind myself, relax, relax, breathe, breathe. You're safe, you're okay. So if you're at your work and you're feeling stressed or you're feeling tension, go back to breathing. Go back to telling yourself, I'm safe. Go back to visualizing the positive things that you wrote down. Then the other one, if you want really true, let me make sure, is my screen shown now again? If so, give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, showing.
Okay, thank you. So if you really want true mental well-being and resilience, you have to become radically authentic. Now, radically authentic means, as you can see here, you have the sandcastle seeing itself as a sandcastle, but in his mind, it can see it's a true sandcastle. Some of us don't really step into our greatness. Some of us don't really allow ourselves or give ourselves permission to be who we want to be. So radical authenticity means being who you are, being and embracing who you are. Someone asked me, my birthday was a couple of days ago, right? And the ladies who were working on me asked me, so how old are you? And I said, I'm 57. And they said, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I'm 57. They said, what's the secret? I said, I never say yes when I mean no, and I never say no when I mean yes. I do what's in alignment with my spirit, and I do what's in alignment with my higher self. If I don't feel like something is right, I speak up. I don't stay silent. See, some of you say yes when you mean no, and then you're stressed the rest of the day or however long you have to do something that you didn't want to do. Some of you say no when you mean yes, meaning you may want to do something, but you're afraid what people may think. So you say no. Become radically authentic. When you step into your authenticity, that's when you will become more mentally balanced and well. That's when you will have the mind, body, spirit connection. The last one is listen. There's many of them, but because of time, these are the ones I can share with you. In my third book, well, actually it's not my third, but the third of the series, I talk about these things, and they could be all the different things you can do. The one on here is listen to your inner voice. I have a saying that I came up with many, many years ago, and it is, learn to listen to your inner voice, for it is God whispering to your soul. Our inner voice is our intuition. It never fails us. It never fails us. It tells us what we need and need not to do. I'll give you an example. When you're driving and you don't have GPS, and something you say to yourself, I'm not sure which way to go, and something says turn left, but you're like, no, I think I need to turn right, and something says no, turn left. You go ahead and turn right. An hour later, you are late and you are lost. And there's a little voice that will say what? I told you so. That voice knows what's right for us. It knows what we need. But as scientists, we don't listen to it because there's no verification. It hasn't been validated. Where's the numbers for it? Where's the statistics for it? So we don't listen to that inner voice. And like I share with people, and I think I did this with Dr. Noir class, where I talked about there may be something you want to say in a meeting, and that inner voice is saying, say something. Tell them what you think about this research. And you're like, no, I'm not going to say anything. And then somebody else says it, and everybody's like, oh, that was great. And the inner voice is saying, I told you to say something. So learn to listen to your inner voice more. When you do that, it will keep you out of trouble. For instance, for me, I'm very vocal. I'm assertive. Coming from America and being an African-American woman working in the industry that I did, NASA being scientists, Office of Naval Research, scientists who were in the military, I had to learn to be visible. I had to learn to be heard. I had to learn to be seen. And so there were times where something would say, don't say anything. And even now, I may want to say something and I'll think about it. And my inner voice will either say, yeah, say it, or it'll say, no, don't say anything, because it's not worth the fight. So if I say something and my inner voice told me not to, usually it's going to be a fight, and I have to be prepared for that. So I'm learning more to rely on my inner voice versus what I think or what I feel. Now you'll say, well, what's the difference? You can sense it. The inner voice is a nice, soft, gentle, but loud. It lets you know its presence. While thinking is ego. It's like, I got to do this. I want to do this. And I call ego edging God out, ego. But the inner voice is nothing like ego. It's protecting you. It's trying to help you. It's supporting you. It's advancing you. So learn to listen to your inner voice, for it's God whispering to your soul. Oh, I see. It's only sharing that last screen. Let's see. So the last thing I want to say, I talked about storms, right? And I don't want us to get stuck on storms. I want us to know that you can be so busy in your storm and in your head that you'll miss the rainbow, because every storm brings a rainbow. And this is my favorite quote, and it is, and once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what this storm is all about. I want you to recognize whatever storm you're in and understand why you're in the storm. What are you supposed to learn from that storm? That's resilience. And when it comes to mind wellness, the fastest way to healing is recognizing, embracing, and then moving through it. So I'm Dr. Indigo. I do mental wellness services, transformational coaching, business and career consulting. A lot of what I talked about today comes out of this book. You can pick it up at Amazon. And if you're in Africa, it's probably better to get it off a Kindle because of shipping and so forth. So now let's open up. And here's my information if you guys want to take a snapshot of it. And now we can open it up for questions.
Okay, Dr. Indigo, thanks very much. I'll just, I have a few questions, but I need just to make some words. Please help to evaluate the session. Eman is sending out the evaluation form, which you can click the web link she has put on the chat box, and then please complete that. We want you to honestly evaluate it because we use this to improve the future sessions, please. So I will just give a short summary because of time, and then I will read out the questions that have come in. Dr. Indigo has, she started off by saying that we are in a storm. We are in a storm. There is a new normal we have to embrace. And she mentioned the fact that there is need for us to align the mind, body, and spirit. And without this alignment, there will be no connection. And this you can't find in books. It's not in a theory. It's a reality that we have to deal with. So quickly, and she mentioned the fact that we have to drive out fear, understand mental health distresses, and they provide a platform for transparency and increased communication and meetings. You never change things by fighting the existing realities, she says. To change something, build a new model that makes existing model obsolete. How will your light shine was the question. You must change in order to get new ways of doing things. And she highlighted the fact that the health organizations predicted that mental health is a reality and was to be the global pandemic before we got this COVID. So it's something that affects every one of us. I think this topic this evening has been quite appreciated with the comments we're getting. So please, as I read this here, give a shout out to Dr. Indigo for highlighting these issues. And she mentioned also that mental health is not a carceral disease. No healthy respect for mental health, unfortunately. She also tried to disprove the common saying that men do not have less mental health than women. They just have different mental health issues. So the life storm is a reality. Some of us are getting into it, some are in it, some are getting out. And the famous quote of Muhammad Ali comes to bear: it does not matter how many times you get knocked down, but how many times you get back up. So, and that is what is called resilience, which means bouncing back from the storm we are. So she brought up her famous acronym CARS, which helps to drive through the life storm we face. And these are connections, colleagues, knowing their roles, advocates, resources we have, and supporters. Everyone experiences a storm. That is a reality. How each person navigates through it is ultimately up to you. But using the CARS, it's possible to find a way out. We need to practice resilience. And she gave some tools we can use: journaling, keeping track of your feelings, keeping track of your experiences, and learning from them, meditating, visualizing, being grateful, positive psychology. And she says we need radical authenticity. Say yes when you mean yes, and say no when you mean no. We put ourselves in problems when we begin to mix issues. That is not reality of life that we should be in. And finally, she says, listen to your inner voice. So a big thank you, Dr. Indigo, for this evening. I think it has been an eye-opening for many. It has also been reinforcement for many who have been in this area. But overall, I think we are part of this story this night. And I will now, I have asked some of these questions. I think I will go to, yeah, so this is the one here. If you can quickly do it, we have a few minutes left. How do you advise friends who are depressed to seek for help with a psychiatrist? Most especially when they have problems sharing their problems with others.
So you have to be, that very good question. Thank you for asking that. So you have to be very careful and mindful, because remember, there's so much stigma around it. And if you say something like, I think you need to see a psychiatrist, that will shut them down. Instead, be that friend for them and ask them questions like, how do you feel today? And if they say, I feel sad or I feel depressed, ask them questions like, well, have you thought about talking to someone? See, there's a difference between saying you need to see someone, but have you thought about talking to someone, you know, that really went to school for this? Because I'm listening and I don't think I can help you, is how you can, you know, couch it. You can say something like, you know, I was at a session recently and they were talking about, you know, the difference between a psychiatrist and a therapist and counselor. Have you thought, remember I keep going back to, have you thought about seeing a counselor? Because sending someone right away to a psychiatrist can be very, very nerve-wracking. So it's easier for people to embrace going to a counselor first. But a good counselor will say, yeah, you need a psychiatrist. And a good counselor may, you know, even recommend them to a therapist. So try to empathize in such a way that you don't want them to feel shame, and that you don't want them to feel bad about how they're feeling, but let them know that you care and that you've been thinking about them, and that because you've been thinking about them, you think that them talking to someone may be helpful. Does that make sense?
Okay, I think that is clear enough. As a public health researcher, do I have to be an expert in psychology before I can fully explore diverse areas of research in mental health?
Okay, so I'm not really understanding the question. Are you asking, as a public health researcher, you want to work in the area of mental health, or you're asking, should you seek research in mental health? I'm not, can that person share with me what they're really asking? Or Bright, can you explain it?
Yeah, I've given the person Adewumi, I think you asked this question. Can you unmute yourself and clarify your question? Adewumi, are you there?
Yes, I was trying to unmute.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
I'm asking as a public health researcher, someone that is interested in working on mental health research. So because I just want to leverage on Dr. Indigo's experience, because she had been opportune to work in diverse areas in mental health. So I felt she could actually provide insight into areas that, research, a public health practitioner can actually work on as it relates to mental health. I don't know if that is on this.
Okay, thank you, Adewumi.
Ade is fine.
Adewumi.
I am working on trying to say names correctly. As somebody said, he's from America, but he married a Nigerian, and so he considers himself. And he also did a DNA test and found that he's Nigerian. And he said, for African Americans to try to not learn the, African names is horrible because it's in our DNA. And I agree. It is in our DNA that we need to learn how to pronounce these names and pronounce them appropriately. So if I make a mistake, forgive me and know that it's coming from my whole heart that I want to say it correctly. Excellent question. What I love about your question is that there's not enough people in the mental health space. There is not enough psychiatrists. I'm talking about globally. I have a friend who daughter has schizophrenia and her medication stopped working and she couldn't get her in for over a month. Now this daughter was kind of giving her a hard time. So I was able to help her bridge her daughter, but that's definitely not my area, for long term. I'm more, short term, right? So it's not enough of us in the mental health space, people who want to do research, work in that space. And if you're already a public health researcher, I would venture that you've had some classes already in psychology, in undergraduate and things like that. I'm not sure, but I would only imagine you may have some credits and things like that. But speak with, if you're still in school, which I don't know, if you're still in school, you can ask the university, can you work in that area? Because I was actually on the business track, but I have a long background of teaching psychology courses, as well as I wrote psychology things. So I had the background already, but I had to get special permission to work on it under my doctorate. So if that is of interest to you, definitely go that route. It's an amazing, amazing field, mental health. And there are so many areas you can get into, everything from women's health around mental health, youth development. When we talk about leadership, it's so much there. So yes, you can move over into that because I believe you probably have some of the basics, undergraduate or master level, or even your PhD that can lend to that research.
Okay, thanks very much, Dr. Indigo, for the answer to that question. This is how can I tell if someone has mental health problem? I think we had a good discussion on this between you and Dr. Ron on this issue. Of course, you need a specialist to do this, isn't it?
Well, let me say this. Everybody has a mental health problem. There is nobody who doesn't. Just because right now, Dr. Noir, right, you may be happy right now, but if you get the right phone call, you can end up having a problem. So we have to not isolate it into a package that she has a mental health problem, because we all go in and out of it. We all have mental health. So that's just like, I was just talking to what I call my pretend daughter over in Malaysia, and she just got the vaccine and she's not feeling well. Now, that's a physical problem, right? She has a headache. Now, normally she's healthy, but she has a headache today. Does that mean that she's sick? It just means she has a headache and she's around 5 on that scale of well or ill. So Stop thinking in terms of mental health and problematic, but start thinking of mental health in terms of a spectrum, that we all have mental health like we have physical health. If you become angry righteously, you know, like how you see people in America picketing because, and throwing out, you know, busting windows and carrying on because we get killed by police. We're angry. Are we mentally healthy at that moment? No, we're angry, but we're rightfully angry. And that anger will allow us to do what we need to do. Now, where it becomes problematic is when we stay angry so long that now you got a headache. You're nervous, you're shaking, you're making decisions that are unhealthy for you. You're doing things that you normally wouldn't do. That's when it's problematic, but everyone has mental health problems now and again. It's how we deal with it. Does that make sense?
Sure, it does. It does. I don't think anybody disagrees with that, of course. Okay, you have acknowledged this. This is just as many others have said that they have enjoyed this program. Well, just to let you know, this is just a tip of the iceberg, as they say. Dr. Indigo, he will be speaking in this seminar series 3 times. So this is the first one. Let me skip to the next slide. I wanted to inform you this already. So I have listened to her very inspiring speech about the unwritten rules. So if you want to be successful, during the past week, I taught the course on the grant writing. I brought some issues around successful scientists, but that was very primary and basic. If you want to get the toolbox of getting through the line, please do not fail to sign up for these sessions. I promise you, they are going to be transformational. Dr. Indigo, we want to thank you again for this evening, for presenting this very all-important topic that is affecting everybody in the world. Okay, we promised to end at the hour, but we have moved beyond that. I want to apologize for that. It's just that I know you don't even want to leave here. So, but I wouldn't keep you too long. Our next seminar is coming on the 20th of June. We'll be announcing during the week what is coming up, and then we will be having the extra I mentioned. We'll have some of our African brothers and sisters who will come to tell us about their career progress, how they have made it, how they have navigated the storm of science. We still have space for others who want to present. Please, if you want to present, you have your story you want to tell, it doesn't matter how it looks, we are happy to feature you. So just get in touch with me or Eman, and then we will enroll you to showcase on that day. We also have other dates in the future, so just get in touch. All right, thank you very much. I will stop sharing. I think usually Eman will want to take a picture of those present before we end. Please just show your camera if you want to be in the picture. Please show your video.
Yes. Open your camera and smile, please.
No.
Indigo.
Thanks all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Bless you. Bless you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Brighty, for allowing us to be this great presentation on GBT.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.